know what always makes me smile, chums, is the fact that when you've reported on many royal events over the years, it's the sort of things that people escalate in the media as, breaking royal protocol, or, if you're a person a little bit like me, I'm one of these people that I don't realize I'm doing it, but when you're talking to someone, you might touch them affectionately, but you know what I mean? Oh, sorry, and all that. But, and then of course, if you do that, say when you're interviewing a royal member, apparently that's breaking royal protocol. I've touched many of the royal family and they just know exactly the situation because you can't help it. It's part of your character. They are well versed, as you can imagine, on what people do and what people don't do when they meet them. And as I've said to you many times before, a lot of people are incredibly nervous because suddenly they think, oh no, it's the royal family. Now cast your mind back when you think about it to when really the British monarchy was very much more revered and, curtsying, bowing, royal protocol was literally at its height. It's hard to imagine this now, but I've interviewed many people over the years who appeared in those prestigious royal variety shows, and they said absolutely that was the worst piece, not actually the act, but making, sure you bowed right or curtsied right, or, did you say the right thing because suddenly you're gabbling and you're not quite sure. Well, way back in the early 1950s, this superstar from Trinidad, well, she shocked quite a lot. As ever, let me explain. Morning, lovely to see you, chums. Thank you as ever for your time and your company. Yes, you, I'm talking to you. We'll have a nice wave. Yeah, I know, yes, wave back, I'm looking, absolutely. Yes, listen, there's people walking past here. You look a bit silly. If no, we'll wave again just to let them know that we're all sane on this channel, right? The bells, but we're all sane on this channel. Of course we are, of course we are. Let me introduce you to this wonderful lady, Winifred Atwell. Now, I loved Winifred Atwell as a kid, right? I just thought she was terrific. Two reasons. Not only was she brilliantly talented, but, she just had this warmth that came through the TV screen. And, I remember sort of seeing her on these sort of shows, very, I don't mean this rudely, but very young, but, you can just tell whether somebody's a nice person. Speaking to many people who worked with Winifred over the years, she incredibly was that person. She was wonderful, kind, welcoming, and incredibly talented. She became a star, really, all thanks to her unique talents. And one of the sort of gimmicks that Winifred had was the fact that she would have two pianos. And on the records, if you check it out, it will say, at her other piano. I thought that was a terrific gimmick, And she even got a little bit, shall we say, of controversy way back in the early 50s when she appeared with a comedian that was very, very controversial at the time, simply because, well, he was one of these sort of people that, said or did the wrong thing. In that climate, it wouldn't really have mattered. She didn't care. But of course, it did if you look at it in today's climate. We're talking about the brilliant comedian, Frank Randall. He was sort of like the really shocking comedian of his day. And, never really, he sort of missed out, sadly, on transitioning into television. Did a little bit of radio, but he was considered that controversial. Or while he packed theatres and made films and was very, very clever, strangely enough, he and Winifred were good friends. They just got on. And even though he sort of tried to upstage her a little bit in his movie alongside her, she made sure that her talent shone through. Winifred was more, though, than just a pianist, you see. She was also the very first lady over here in the United Kingdom to open a hair salon exclusively for women of colour. And they could do all the perms and the straightenings and all that sort of stuff very ahead of her time. Absolutely. But way back in 1952, well, things took a turn, some might say, for the worst, because she released a track, and remember, she plays ragtime and stuff like that. She released a track called Britannia Rag, and this was incredibly popular. Just a wonderful sort of song, and very much linked to the monarchy in a sort of modern way of the 1950s. Well, fast forward a year, and suddenly she comes up with Coronation Rag, right? Now, she's booked to appear on that year's Royal Variety Show. And as you can imagine, this was seen as, really, I'm not sure we can have this. Producers took her to one side and said, look, although it's a popular track, is it right to play it in front of the monarchy, etc., etc. And this goes back to what I'm saying about how people see things differently and how they sort of decide whether the monarchy will be offended or not. What a lot of people didn't know, including the producers, was that she was already good friends with the late Princess Margaret, and they knew each other very well socially, seen each other at events, and she'd already said, look, you know, the family's a big fan of your music. You have to remember that Winifred is now quite a regular in the pop music charts of that time. So consequently, they decided that, yeah, they would risk it, and, you know, everybody went to the Royal Variety performance. This was the very first performance of a Royal Command performance for the Queen, you know, after the sad demise of her father. So consequently, a lot of people were very jittery as to what they presented. Winifred took to the stage, announced that she will be playing both Britannia Rag and Coronation Rag. And apparently it was the Queen Mother that set off the applause. Afterwards, she let it be known to the producers, no, they were huge fans. They've got a lot of her records. No, don't be offended at all. And this really cemented a lifelong friendship between, of course, senior members of the Royals and regular appearances out at Windsor Castle. It's funny, as I often say here on the show, that people that were so huge and so talented seem to have been forgotten in the annals of time. And why does somebody else last, or, you know, why do you remember certain individuals and say not Winifred Atwell? She was very, as I say, influential on a lot of people. A little bit like another lady called Mrs. Mills. Mrs. Mills was a pub pianist, and she just went literally shot to fame. That's all thanks, of course, to, well, when you think about it, the Art of Records. A producer from EMI saw her, thought she was terrifically talented, and made records with her. These two ladies influenced so many other pianists of the day, including the aforementioned Russ Conway, Sir Elton John, and even Barry Manilow, I've been told. So as you can imagine, it's fascinating to think, as I say, that these stories and these ladies who are supremely talented and do deserve to be remembered from time to time, if not all the time, well, they certainly made their mark in front of the British monarchy. Now, if you want to check out her talent, Winifred Atwell and Mrs. Mills, it's all free right here on YouTube. Now, how about that for a special treat? Neil Shawn in the very heart of London.